Hello, and welcome to the Coach and Teacher edition of Steve Barkley Ponders Out Loud. Both teaching and coaching are important interconnected roles that are critical in shaping student success. So I'm excited to explore with you some strategies and ideas for engaging and supporting learners. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Messages you want students to hear early and have reinforced throughout the year. The beginning of the year is a great time to identify and plan for important messages you want students to initially hear and longer term solidly believe. Teacher messages are foundational to building strong, positive relationships with students. And those relationships are critical for creating an environment where students feel supported, motivated, and capable of achieving success. When students trust and feel connected to their teachers, they are more likely to engage deeply in their learning, take academic risk, and ultimately achieve success. Dave Stuart identifies that our messages to students should be built around I value you, I know you, and I respect you. He suggests messages may sound something like this. When trying to signal I value you, I'm asking students questions about themselves. I'm saying something specific that I appreciate about the student, and I'm asking for their opinion on something. When I'm trying to signal that I know you, I reference things you shared with me before. I might be asking about something you shared in your writing. I'm bringing up something specific I've noticed about you and your progress in class. When I'm trying to signal that I respect you, I'm telling you earnestly and honestly that I'm glad you're in my class. I'm sharing with you a time outside of class when I thought about something you had said or done and felt grateful for it. I'm explaining to you what I see in you, what makes you remarkable to me, and maybe what role I see you playing in the class dynamics. Here's a great example of the power of those types of messages. A research study by Daniel Yeager and colleagues looked at teachers' feedback to 7th grade students on the first draft of a 5-paragraph essay about personal heroes. Teachers wrote their comments on students' papers, but before the students received the comments, the research team attached a handwritten note from the teacher to the essays, either a treatment note or a control note. Both notes were in the teacher's handwriting. The treatment note, known as wise feedback, said, quote, I'm giving you these comments because I have very high standards and I know that you can meet them, end quote. Half the students were in a control group that got a non-specific control note that said, quote, I'm sharing these comments so you have feedback on your essay, end quote. Teachers handed back the essays in sealed folders so the teachers couldn't see which students received which notes. Then the students had a week to revise their essays. The studies showed that students who got the wise feedback note were twice as likely to revise their essays as those who didn't. 40% revised their essays in the control group, but 80% revised them in the treatment group. The next year, researchers ran the study again, and now new students in the same teachers' classrooms were all required to revise their essays. They found that students made more than twice as many of the teacher's suggested corrections when they got the WISE feedback treatment note. Although all students benefited overall from WISE feedback, those belonging to minority groups benefited the most. The WISE feedback eliminated racial disparities in students' revisions. Another example of the importance of our messages comes from Jo Boaler, the author of Mathematical Mindsets. She writes, quote, "Teachers can communicate positive expectations to students by using encouraging words. And it's easy to do this with students who are motivated, with those who learn easily or are quick. But it's more important to communicate positive beliefs and expectations to students who are slower, appear unmotivated, or struggle. It's also important for us as teachers to realize that the speed at which students appear to grasp concepts is not indicative of their overall mathematics potential. As hard as it is, it's important not to have any preconceptions about who will work well on a math task in advance of the students getting the task. We must be open at all times to any students working really well. Some students give the impression that math is a constant struggle for them, and they may ask a lot of questions or keep saying that they're stuck, but they're just hiding their mathematics potential and are likely to be suffering from a fixed mindset. Some students have had bad math experiences and bad negative messages from a young age, or they've not received the opportunities for brain growth and learning that other students have, so they are at lower levels than other students. But this does not mean they cannot take off with good mathematics teaching, positive messages, and perhaps most importantly, high expectations from their teacher. You can be the person who turns things around for them and liberates their math learning path. It usually just takes one person, a person whom the student will never forget." End quote. Wow. Pretty powerful to think about having the potential to be that person. Dave Stuart offers up a strategy to focus your messages for knowing, valuing, and respecting students across the year. He calls it attempted moments of genuine connection. Listen in on his explanation.
You're trying to make students feel these things, valued, known, or respected, in two areas. Usually just do one at a time. So first, you want them to feel valued, known, and respected as people in the personal realm of their life. This is where you connect on their interests, their extracurricular activities, their aspirations for life, maybe their family. Okay, so those are personal moments of genuine connection. And then you also want to connect with children around their academic life. These are the things specific to what you're trying to teach them to master or to learn. And so this could be talking about their assessment results, a recent piece of writing they've created, a project they're working on, and so on. And it's really important to add one more thing to this, all right? And that is keeping track of the moments of genuine connection. So what I like to do is copy and paste all the names of the students in all my classes onto a single sheet of paper. And I make lots of copies of that single sheet and I put it on a clipboard. And now I'm armed with the high-tech, sophisticated means by which I'm going to make sure that I attempt moments of genuine connection for every single child on my roster. This is critical because when left to my own devices, I will often miss many students, many more than I think that I do when I'm not measuring moments of genuine connection. So I want to encourage you to come up with a very simple, can't miss tracking mechanism that keeps you honest, keeps you sharp, keeps you finding your blind spots and acting to fix them in the moment rather than, long after you get a chance to do anything about your relationships with students.
As teachers, we all want to be sure our students are receiving messages of our belief in them. And unconsciously, with automaticity, our delivery is usually peppered with attempted moments of genuine connection. But unconsciously, we may be missing opportunities and missing individual students. So, decide on conscious actions like those shared in this podcast to purposefully build into your instruction and tracking. And consider inviting an instructional or peer coach to do an observation and record messages that communicate knowing, valuing, and respecting. Messages that they saw and heard. Ask them at times to look at the entire class and other times to focus on a few students or perhaps even an individual student. Know that during those observations, you will likely be extra conscious of your words and actions. And that's great because conscious practice is a key to internalization and building automaticity. The links to all the authors mentioned in this podcast are in the podcast lead-in. I'd love to hear your strategies for getting important relationship-building messages to your students. Reach me at barclaypd.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, folks. I'd love to hear what you're pondering. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Steve Barclay, or send me your questions and find my videos and blogs at barclaypd.com.